Chapter 1. The Missing Shadow. Ethan Gray always thought of himself as an ordinary man. He lived in a small town, worked as a history teacher, and followed a routine so predictable that even the local cafe barista could set her clock by the moment he walked through the door. Nothing extraordinary had ever touched his life, until the morning he woke up without a shadow. At first, he didn't notice. He shuffled to the bathroom, brushed his teeth, and stared blearily into the mirror. The face looking back at him was as weary as usual, brown hair needing a cut, stubble shading his jaw. But when he turned to grab his towel, his eyes fell to the tiled floor. The morning sun cut through the blinds, casting bright stripes across the room. The towel rack threw its shadow against the wall. The toothbrush stood like a little soldier, its silhouette sharp. But Ethan cast nothing. He froze. He lifted his hand, waving it experimentally. Nothing. The light passed through him as though he weren't there. His heart thudded. This has to be a trick of the light, he told himself. He went to the bedroom, then the kitchen, then the porch, where the sun was brighter. The same truth met him everywhere. The world had shadows, but Ethan Gray did not. At work, he tried to hide it. He walked carefully, keeping close to walls, avoiding moments when students might notice. Yet children have sharp eyes. By mid-morning, one of them raised her hand. "Mr. Gray," she said innocently, "why don't you have a shadow?" The room fell silent. 20 pairs of young eyes swiveled toward him. Ethan felt his skin crawl. He forced a laugh. "That's a strange thing to say," he replied. "Of course I do. Maybe the light's just funny today." But even as he said it, he saw the confusion on their faces. He dismissed class early and shut himself in his office. His hands trembled as he searched the internet. Man without shadow, missing shadow, no silhouette. The results were nonsense. Urban legends, ghost stories, conspiracy theories. Some spoke of curses, others of souls stolen by demons. By the end of the day, whispers had already spread through town. People stared. Some crossed the street when he walked by. Others murmured behind cupped hands. A man without a shadow was not just unusual, it was unnatural. That night, Ethan locked himself inside his house and turned off every light. Yet even in the darkness, the absence followed him. He felt hollow, as if something essential had been carved out of his being. He dreamed of shadows. In the dream, they were alive, vast black figures that slithered along the ground, reaching for him, but never quite touching. When he woke, his chest was slick with sweat. The following morning, there was a knock on his door. When he opened it, a stranger stood on the porch. She was tall, dressed in a long gray coat despite the summer heat, her hair tied back in a braid. Her eyes, a piercing silver, studied him with unsettling calm. "You've lost it," she said simply. "Lost what?" Ethan asked. "Your shadow," the woman replied. "And if you don't find it soon, something else will take its place." Chapter 2. The Stranger in Gray. Ethan stood frozen on the threshold, staring at the woman. The morning sun slanted across the porch, bathing everything in golden light. The stranger's shadow stretched long behind her on the wooden boards, solid, dark, ordinary. And beside it, where his own should have been, there was nothing. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ethan said finally, his voice unsteady. "This is just some weird trick. Maybe it's a medical condition or something with the light. Who are you?" The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she studied him with the patience of someone who had already seen this 100 times before. Then she said, "My name is Lyra, and you're not sick, Ethan. You're marked." "Marked? By who?" He forced a nervous laugh. "This is crazy." But Lyra stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Hasn't it already begun? People staring, whispers. The dreams at night, you felt them, haven't you? The shadows trying to reach you." Ethan's blood ran cold. He hadn't told anyone about the dream. He stepped back into the house, meaning to slam the door. But something in Lyra's eyes stopped him. They weren't cruel or mocking. They were sad, heavy with knowledge. "Why me?" Ethan whispered. "Because you were chosen," she said. "Or cursed. Depends how you look at it. Shadows are not just tricks of light. They are anchors, ties between the body and the soul. Lose it, and the world begins to notice. Lose it long enough, and other things will come to claim the space." Ethan's hands tightened on the doorframe. "You sound insane." "Perhaps," she admitted softly. "But insanity has less weight than truth. Tell me, do you want it back?" For a moment, Ethan wanted to deny it, to shove her away, close the door, pretend this nightmare would fade if he ignored it long enough. But deep down he knew. Every hour without his shadow gnawed at him, hollowing him out. Already he felt weaker, like a candle burning too fast. "Yes," he said, "I want it back." Lyra nodded once. "Then listen carefully. Shadows wander when they are severed. Yours will be drawn to places of reflection, where the veil between light and dark thins. If you're lucky, you'll find it before something else does." "And if I'm not lucky?" Ethan asked. Her silver eyes hardened. "Then your shadow becomes a door, and whatever steps through will not be you." A silence stretched between them. Outside, a bird called from the trees, the sound oddly sharp against the heaviness of the moment. Ethan swallowed. "All right. Where do we start?" Lyra slipped her hand into her coat and drew out a small object. A shard of polished obsidian, smooth and black as ink. It caught no reflection, as though it swallowed the light whole. "This will help you see what others can't," she explained. "But it will also draw attention. Keep it close." Ethan reached out, hesitating before taking the stone. It was strangely warm against his palm, as though alive. The moment he touched it, the world tilted. Shadows at the edges of the room seemed to twitch, stretch, shift unnaturally. He sucked in a breath. "What was that?" "Your first glimpse," Lyra said. "Do not stare too long. They notice when you look back." They left his house together, walking into the streets of the town. People turned their heads as he passed, some muttering, others making the sign of the cross. Ethan could feel their suspicion pressing on him like a weight. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the place your shadow will seek first," Lyra replied. "The river. Still water is a mirror for what's lost." Ethan glanced at her. "And if it's not there?" Lyra's expression darkened. "Then it has already moved on. And the longer it wanders, the harder it will be to bring back." That night they stood by the banks of the river. The moon hung low, its reflection rippling across the dark surface. Ethan clutched the obsidian shard in his hand, his breath shallow. "Look," Lyra whispered, and there, bending across the water, was his shadow, thin, distorted like smoke trapped beneath the surface, reaching for him. But something else moved in the water too, something darker. Chapter 3. The River's Bargain. The moonlight trembled on the surface of the river, silver ripples shivering with every breath of wind. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the impossible sight beneath the water. His shadow, writhing like a living thing. It clung to the riverbed, stretching thin arms upward as though begging to return. But just beyond it, something else stirred. A darkness without form, yet heavier, thicker, like ink poured into the current. Its movements were slow and deliberate, circling the shadow, weaving around it like a predator deciding when to strike. "What is that?" Ethan whispered. Lyra's face was pale in the moonlight. "A shade. They are drawn to abandoned shadows, feeding on what they leave behind. If it takes yours, it will wear it like a mask. And then, Ethan, no one will know the difference between you and it." A chill stabbed his spine. He gripped the shard of obsidian tighter. The warmth of it pulsed against his skin, almost like a heartbeat. "Can we get it back?" he asked. Lyra's gaze flicked to him, unreadable. "Not without a price. The river always demands one." The wind picked up, tossing small waves against the shore. Ethan knelt by the water, his reflection wavering. He tried to touch the surface, but the river recoiled, forming tiny whirlpools around his fingertips. "What do I have to do?" "Call it," Lyra said. "Your shadow still knows your voice. Call it, and it may return." He swallowed. His throat was dry, but he forced the words out anyway. "Come back," he whispered. "Come back to me." At once, the thing beneath the water twisted violently. His shadow jerked upward, stretching toward the surface. The shade hissed, or maybe it was the river itself, growling like an angry beast. The current surged, darkening, dragging the shadow back down. Ethan panicked. He shouted louder, "Come back! You belong to me!" The obsidian in his hand grew hot, burning his palm. A flash of light burst across the water, and suddenly his shadow broke free, surging upward like smoke escaping a fire. For a single glorious moment, Ethan felt whole again. He could feel it returning, sliding back along his feet, clinging to his body. But the shades struck. The river erupted. Black water shot upward, forming a shape, a towering figure of liquid darkness, eyeless, faceless, yet radiating hunger. It seized the shadow with clawed hands, tearing it away before it could fuse back into him. Ethan fell backward, gasping, the sudden absence ripping through his chest like a knife. "No," he cried. "Give it back." The shade's voice was a soundless whisper, crawling into his ears like spiders. "Yours is mine." Ethan staggered to his feet. "Take me, then. Leave it alone." The words slipped out before he realized what he was offering. The shade paused, tilting its shapeless head as though amused. Its claw reached toward him, and the air grew colder, heavy with rot. Lyra stepped between them, her coat whipping in the wind. She raised her hand, and a line of silver light cut across the air, bright enough to sear the night. The shade recoiled, shrieking in silence. "You will not take him," she said fiercely. The river churned, but the shade hesitated. It clutched Ethan's shadow tighter, then slowly melted back into the water, vanishing into the depths. The surface stilled. The night grew quiet again, but Ethan's shadow was gone. He fell to his knees, chest heaving. It had it. It had me, and now it's gone. Lyra crouched beside him, her silver eyes softened with something almost like pity. "The river gave you a chance, but you weren't ready to pay." "What do you mean, pay? What more could it want?" "Sacrifice," she said quietly. "Something of yourself, given willingly. That's the bargain of shadows. Without it, yours will remain prey for shades until it is devoured." Ethan's fists clenched against the dirt. A storm of fear and anger swirled in his chest. He wanted to scream, to demand why this was happening to him. But beneath it all, one truth pressed harder than anything. If he did nothing, his shadow, and maybe his soul, would be lost forever. Lyra rose, glancing at the dark ribbon of the river. "We'll have to follow it. The shade will carry your shadow to the crossing. That's where bargains are sealed, and where you'll have to decide what you're willing to lose." "The crossing?" Ethan asked hoarsely. Her expression turned grim. "The place where shadows choose their masters." Chapter 4. The Crossing. The road to the crossing was not on any map. Lyra led Ethan away from the river and into the woods, her pace steady, her gaze fixed as if she were following a trail only she could see. The trees grew denser, their branches tangling overhead until the moonlight was little more than a pale shimmer through the leaves. "Where exactly are we going?" Ethan asked, his voice hushed. The silence of the forest pressed in on him, thick and unnatural. "To the threshold," Lyra replied. "The place where the world of men and the world of shadows overlap. Few can walk it, fewer return." Ethan shivered. He clutched the shard of obsidian, now dull and cool in his hand. Since the river, it hadn't pulsed with warmth again. It felt like a dead thing. "How do you know all this?" he asked. Lyra glanced back at him. For the first time, her expression faltered. "Because once I lost my shadow too." Ethan stopped in his tracks. "You? Then did you get it back?" She didn't answer. She only turned and kept walking. They reached a clearing at last. In the center stood a stone archway, ancient and weathered, freestanding with no wall to hold it. The air around it shimmered faintly, like heat rising from asphalt. "This is the crossing," Lyra said. Her voice carried a weight that made Ethan's chest tighten. "Once you step through, you will not be in your world anymore. You'll be in theirs." He stared at the archway. "And what happens there?" "You'll face the Keeper of Shadows," she said. "It will ask you to give up something in exchange for what you've lost. The Shade will try to twist that bargain to its favor. If you are not careful, Ethan, you'll leave less than you entered." Ethan's mouth went dry. "And if I refuse?" "Then your shadow will be consumed," Lyra replied flatly. "And so will you." He closed his eyes, drawing in a shaky breath. His entire life had been ordinary, predictable, safe. But now he was standing at the edge of something older and darker than he could comprehend. He thought of his students, their laughter when they teased him, the quiet pride of teaching them about history. He thought of mornings in the cafe, of books stacked on his nightstand, of the ordinary life he had taken for granted. He wanted it back. All of it. "Let's do this," he whispered. Lyra's silver eyes lingered on him, almost mournful, but she nodded. Together, they stepped beneath the archway. The world shifted instantly. Cold struck him first, sharp as knives. The clearing vanished, replaced by a vast plain of darkness. The ground beneath his feet was solid but looked like liquid shadow, rippling with every step. Above them, no stars, no moon, only endless black. Shapes drifted at the edges of sight, too fast to focus on. Whispers slithered through the air, voices overlapping, hissing words in languages Ethan couldn't understand. "This place is alive," he muttered. "It is hunger given form," Lyra said quietly. "Stay close." A distant glow appeared on the horizon, pale, flickering, like the flame of a candle struggling against the dark. They walked toward it, and with every step, the whispers grew louder. Ethan felt them clawing at his mind, dredging up memories he had buried deep. The night his father died, the guilt of words left unsaid, the loneliness that haunted his empty house. He stumbled. Shadows surged upward, clutching at his ankles. "Lyra," he gasped. She pressed the obsidian shard into his hand. "Hold on to it. Don't let them take what you don't give." The stone flared suddenly, and the shadows recoiled. Ethan forced himself forward, teeth clenched, sweat beading on his brow. Finally, they reached the source of the glow. It was a throne, carved of black stone, standing in the center of the plain. Upon it sat a figure draped in robes that shifted like smoke, its face hidden behind a mask of polished onyx. In its lap lay Ethan's shadow, curled like a trembling animal, its form flickering between smoke and flesh. The figure's voice was both everywhere and nowhere, echoing in his bones. "You seek what was lost." "Yes," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "It's mine. I want it back." The masked head tilted. "Everything has a cost. What will you give, Ethan Gray?" Chapter 5. The Keeper's Choice. The throne loomed before him, vast and impossible, its surface absorbing every flicker of light. The figure seated upon it leaned forward, and though its mask was featureless, Ethan felt its gaze pierce him like a blade. "What will you give, Ethan Gray?" the voice echoed again. His throat tightened. "Anything," he blurted, too desperate to hesitate. "I'll give whatever it takes. Just give me my shadow back." The figure rose slowly from the throne. The plane of darkness quivered at its movement, as though the entire realm bowed to it. It extended a hand of pure shadow, long fingers curling toward Ethan. "Anything." "Then offer me what anchors you to your world. Your laughter, your memory, your love. Give me the part that makes you human, and your shadow will be yours again." Ethan staggered backward, his chest pounding. "My humanity? That's not a price. That's everything." The masked figure's voice slithered around him. "The ordinary life you cling to is fragile. You were chosen because you never truly valued it. Give me what you don't deserve to keep." "Don't listen," Lyra snapped, stepping between them. "The Keeper twists bargains. It will take more than you think." The figure's head turned toward her. "And what of you? Broken one. Do you not remember your own bargain?" Ethan glanced at her, startled. Lyra's jaw tightened, her silver eyes flashing with something raw. "Enough," she said, but her voice trembled. "What does it mean?" Ethan demanded. "What bargain?" Lyra didn't meet his gaze. "I told you, I lost my shadow once, but I didn't get it back. I gave it away to save someone else." Her confession struck him like a blow. He looked at her closely, realizing for the first time, she walked in this place with purpose, but never once had he seen her shadow even in the world of light. "You don't have one," he whispered. "No," she admitted, her voice breaking. "And I never will." The Keeper's laughter was a soundless quake through the plain. "She knows the price, Ethan Gray, and so will you. There is no return without loss." Ethan felt sick. His mind reeled through possibilities, his memories, his love, his laughter. Each one was a thread of who he was. To give any of it up felt like tearing out his own heart. But then his gaze fell on his shadow, curled in the Keeper's lap like a frightened child. It trembled, reaching faintly toward him, its form dimming as though it were fading away. If he did nothing, it would vanish forever. And something inside him knew he would vanish with it. "What happens if I refuse?" Ethan asked quietly. "Then the shade will take your place in the world above. A perfect imitation. No one will know the difference until it's too late." The image of his students flickered in his mind. The thought of some creature wearing his face, speaking in his voice, walking among them while his true self dissolved into nothing. His stomach turned. "I can't let that happen," he whispered. He lifted the obsidian shard, clutching it tight. Its surface flickered with faint light, resisting the Keeper's pull. "You want my laughter, my memories, my love, but what if I offer something else?" The keeper tilted its masked head. What would you offer instead? Ethan's voice shook, but he forced the words out. My future. Take whatever days I have left. Just give me back the pieces of myself that already belong to me. Lyra spun toward him, her eyes wide. Ethan, no. You don't know what you're saying. The keeper's shadow hand reached closer. A mortal's future is a brief flame, but a soul with its shadow restored burns brighter. Yes, I accept. The plane trembled. Ethan's shadow writhed, tearing itself free from the keeper's lap. It streaked across the darkness and slammed into him like a wave of cold water. He gasped as it fused with him, filling the emptiness he hadn't realized was so vast. For a heartbeat, he felt whole again. Then the keeper's laughter thundered, and the darkness began to collapse. Chapter 6. The Last Light. The realm shook like a storm beneath Ethan's feet. Darkness cracked in jagged lines across the plain, spilling fissures of blinding white light. The keeper's laughter boomed, though its figure remained still, watching him with a patience more terrifying than rage. You've got what you wanted, Ethan shouted, clutching his chest where his shadow had rejoined him. He could feel it now, moving with his every breath. Our bargain is done. Not yet, the keeper purred. Your future belongs to me, Ethan Gray. The clock begins now. The fissures widened, swallowing whole towers of black stone in their path. Ethan staggered, nearly losing his footing. Lyra grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. We have to go, before the collapse consumes everything. But where? He demanded. Around them, the landscape dissolved into fragments, islands of shadow breaking apart and falling into endless white void below. Lyra lifted her face to the unseen sky. There's only one path out, the rift of light. But once you leave, you can never come back. Fine by me, Ethan muttered. They ran. The plane split apart beneath them, shards of ground crumbling away. Ethan's shadow stretched and darted, always one step behind, but finally his. For the first time since this nightmare began, he felt like himself. The keeper's voice followed, low and certain. Run, little mortal. Every step you take hastens your end. Your shadow will not save you from what you promised. Ethan tried to shut it out, focusing on the thin ribbon of light glowing on the horizon. It pulsed like a heartbeat, widening with every quake. Almost there, Lyra gasped. They reached the edge of a great fissure, wider than a river. The other side shimmered with pale gold, a doorway of impossible brilliance. Ethan shielded his eyes. How do we cross? He asked. Lyra looked down into the void. We don't jump. We leap with what remains of us. Before Ethan could ask what that meant, she stepped forward. For a moment, her form blurred, her edges dissolving into strands of silver light. She smiled at him, a soft, broken smile, and then hurled herself across. She landed on the far side, whole again, though still without a shadow. She beckoned. Now you! Ethan stared, heart pounding. He could feel the keeper's presence looming behind him, vast and endless. If he hesitated, he would be dragged back. He closed his eyes. He thought of his classroom, his students, the ordinary mornings of coffee and chalk dust he'd once taken for granted. He thought of laughter, of memory, of love, the very things he'd refused to surrender. He still had them, for now. But his future was already gone. He ran and leapt. The void swallowed him whole. For a moment he felt himself unravel, every cell scattering like ash on the wind. His shadow flared out beside him, stretching, then snapping back as though anchoring him. Light consumed him, burning so bright he thought he might vanish. Then, impact. He hit solid ground, rolling onto his back. The light was softer here, warm. A sky of pale dawn stretched above him, the scent of earth and rain filling his lungs. Birds sang in the distance. He was back. He sat up, trembling. His shadow lay beside him, perfectly aligned with his body. Tears stung his eyes. You made it, Lyra said softly, standing near the tree line. She looked at him with something like wonder. You chose well, Ethan Gray. He laughed shakily. If by well you mean trading away the rest of my life, sure, her smile faded. Yes, that's the cost. Your shadow is yours again, but your days are numbered. The keeper will come for you when the last light inside you burns out. They walked in silence for a while through a quiet forest Ethan recognized as one near his home. The world felt real again. Solid. But every breath carried weight, a reminder of what he'd lost. "Will anyone know?" he asked finally. "When my time runs out?" "Not until the end," Lyra replied. "To them, you'll live as always, but you'll feel it, the shortening of your days." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He wasn't ready to die, but he also wasn't ready to give up being whole. For once, he had no regrets about the choice he'd made. "What about you?" he asked. "Will you stay?" She glanced at the ground, her face shadowed by sorrow. "I can't. This isn't my world anymore. I gave mine away long ago." Before he could respond, she touched his hand briefly, warm, fleeting, and then turned. With each step she took, her form grew fainter, until she melted back into the forest, gone like mist. Ethan stood alone, breathing in the morning air. His shadow stretched behind him, long and dark in the rising sun. He studied it for a long time, half afraid it would slip away again. It didn't. It moved with him, obedient, inseparable. And yet, as he turned toward the path that led home, he felt the faintest tug in his chest, like a candle already burning down. He whispered to himself, "Every day matters now, every single one." And with that, Ethan Gray walked back into the world of light, his shadow faithfully at his side, his future burning shorter with every step. Radio ending script: The Man Without a Shadow. And so, Ethan Gray walked back into the waking world, whole again, yet marked forever by the bargain he made. His shadow clung to him, loyal, dark, inseparable. But with every sunrise, he would feel the quiet ticking of the keeper's promise, the slow dimming of the light inside him. Perhaps you've wondered, as Ethan did, what would you sacrifice to stay yourself? Would you trade the years you haven't lived yet, just to hold on to who you are today? Some say the Keeper of Shadows is only a story. Others whisper that he still waits, watching, patient, ready to strike another bargain in the silence between heartbeats. So tonight, as you turn off the lights and watch your shadow stretch across the floor, ask yourself, is it truly yours, or is it already slipping away?